The crackdown on wholesaling residential real estate continues as more states introduce regulation, and just as I predicted, the regulation is getting more aggressive. On this video, I'm going to share two new states that have introduced bills that, if passed, could drastically change the way we operate as an industry. Now, one of these bills is aiming to make wholesaling entirely illegal without exception. So this is a big deal. My name is Jerry Norton. I've been a full-time wholesaler and real estate investor for over 20 years, and I've been a prominent educator and industry leader for over 15 years. I've also been the loudest voice in the industry about wholesale regulation and how you and I and all of us need to not just raise the bar and operate at a higher level, but also how we need to come together and unify as an industry and how to pivot and adjust regulation where necessary. I'm going to share some more about these ideas and updates as well, so stay to the end of this video. By the way, I maintain a free report with all of the states that have passed regulation and the specific requirements to wholesale legally. Remember, the laws apply where you transact, not where you live, and I am not an attorney, nor do I give legal advice. It's your responsibility to understand and follow the laws where you transact. Now, to get the latest update to my free report, go to wholesaleregulations.com. I also have an entire playlist of videos where I break down these regulations, as well as how to operate a wholesale business morally and ethically and with full transparency. I'll put that playlist link in the description below as well. Now, as of this recording, there are two states that have introduced new bills on regulating wholesaling, and they are North Carolina and West Virginia. Now, at this point, they are just bills and not yet passed into law, and let's hope to God they don't, because both are not good. I'll be monitoring closely, and I'll pin at the top of the comments below any updates as these bills progress. So let's review each separately and then discuss what to do next. First is North Carolina. Now, North Carolina should not come as a shock to anyone. Last year, South Carolina passed the most aggressive regulation we've seen so far, basically making it illegal to transact traditional wholesaling. When South Carolina passed their regulation into law, there was a lot of confusion in the industry. And later, South Carolina came out with a letter clarifying its new law, their position on it, and they made it abundantly clear that you are not allowed to wholesale. And I did a video that breaks down the South Carolina law. I'll put that video in the description below for you. Thankfully, North Carolina didn't take the same approach as South Carolina, but it's still not good. Instead, they followed closely what Pennsylvania did. Introduced on April 7, 2025, known as House Bill 797, also known as the We Buy Houses Homeowner Protection Act, this bill first defines wholesaling to include soliciting homeowners for purchase contracts and negotiating, marketing, or selling purchase contracts. This bill also makes wholesaling part of the real estate broker definition and requires a real estate broker's license. But that's not all. This bill uses explicit language that it aims to protect homeowners from the unfair and deceptive practices of wholesaling and grants a homeowner the right to cancel a purchase contract that is part of a wholesale transaction for any reason within 30 days. It also requires that the wholesaler discloses in 14-point font the seller's right and the process to cancel the contract. The bill also authorizes the Attorney General to enforce the law and gives the North Carolina Real Estate Commission the right to implement rules on how to implement it. So here's my stance. Okay, North Carolina takes the position that wholesaling is brokering and requires a real estate license. I disagree, but okay, that's not that big of a deal. Get a real estate license. But giving a homeowner the right to cancel a contract for any reason for 30 days is ridiculous. That means you could sign a contract with a seller, open escrow, put down earnest money, assign your contract to a cash buyer, and then on day 29, the seller could change his mind and cancel the contract for whatever reason he wants with no repercussions. That means a fully executed, legally binding purchase and sale contract is worthless. And I said the same thing when Pennsylvania did this. How can you pass a law that makes a contract non-binding by the seller? How can you pass a law that gives the seller an unwaivable right to cancel a contract without cause for any reason? That violates the very nature and purpose of a contract. Do you realize how many problems this is going to cause? What about opening escrow a title and then the seller cancels? What about other wholesalers going behind your back and offering more money to the seller? What's to stop the seller and your cash buyer from cutting you, the wholesaler, out of the deal? What wholesaler in their right mind is going to take that risk in North Carolina? Okay, The next bill is in West Virginia, known as HB 3501. And this bill is a doozy. Known as the West Virginia Abolishment of Wholesaling Act, this bill would formally prohibit the practice of wholesaling in the state. The bill clarifies that wholesaling involves making a profit from the transfer of equitable interest in residential real property. The legislation explicitly states that wholesaling would be illegal in West Virginia and outlines the rights of sellers and buyers in the event of being involved in a wholesale transaction, allowing them to cancel contracts without penalty and retain or receive refunds of earnest money. And just to be clear, their definition of wholesaling, which is making a profit transferring equitable interest, would include the assignment, the double close, and the novation, because all of those methods are profiting from equitable interest. West Virginia wants to stop wholesaling in its entirety. Okay, now I told you. I said this would happen 5 years ago when Illinois passed the first regulation. I've said it every time a new state passed regulation since then, that the end game of these regulators is not licensure or disclosure. That's just the foot in the door. The end game is to stop wholesaling entirely. But no, Jerry is over-exaggerating. Jerry is fear-mongering. Jerry is trying to monopolize the industry and make us all join his union. Jerry wants us to get a license. Jerry wants us to have fair contracts. Jerry wants us to put down earnest money and disclose and be transparent and not misrepresent. Jerry wants us to be real investors and buy property, then resell it. You know, when South Carolina passed their law to prohibit wholesaling, I said that this was going to kickstart a domino effect and other states would follow suit. And here we go. West Virginia's abolishment bill. Now, the difference is South Carolina's ban on wholesaling was really poorly written and confusing, but not West Virginia. West Virginia is simple. It's straight to the point. There's no mincing words, no beating around the bush, no hidden agenda or backdoor policy. It's laid out right there in plain and simple English. The abolishment of wholesaling, just like I predicted. Okay, now let me remind you, as of this recording, both these states are just bills and not law. To become law, they have to pass the House and then the Senate and then get signed by the governor. I'll pin at the top of the comments, like I said, if and when these bills progress, but you can make a difference. If you are in either of these states, reach out to your appropriate legislator. I'll put a link in the description where you can enter your address and it will tell you who represents you. Never forget, we are a representative democracy. Help your representatives represent you. Here are a few tips. When you call your legislator, you'll want to be clear and concise. So the person you're talking to, which will likely be a member of your representative staff and not your actual representative, will know if they should put you down as for or against this bill. Let them know you are a constituent, which bill you are calling about, what you think, and why. If you have personal experience or expertise, absolutely share it, but keep it brief and to the point. Every voice matters. Make yours heard. Next, I want to talk again about formally organizing as an industry. Even if these two bills don't pass, the movement to stop wholesaling is underway. It's no longer if your state will regulate, but when and how aggressively. I've been talking about forming a nonprofit association for years, and we're finally moving forward with or without you. We have enough support, and we have the right people willing to put in the work to make it happen. Me and other industry leaders are rolling out the first association in Arizona, and then nationwide, and in time, probably in every state. The goal is to create conformity, standardized contracts, best practices, code of conduct, proper education, and most importantly, a unified voice and legal representation to stand up and fight back against misinformation and government overreach. So if you're interested in being a part of the solution with your voice and your wallet, leave a comment and let me know that you stand behind us. But here's the thing that you have to understand, and I'll say it again. We are past the tipping point. We're beyond the point of no return. The goal now is not to stop regulation. We're way past that. We blew that window of opportunity. The goal now is to be part of the conversation, to work with the attorney generals and real estate commissions and the consumer protection agencies to pass fair and balanced regulation. Otherwise, the South Carolinas and the West Virginias will set the precedents and there won't be a wholesaling industry. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Whether we want to or not, whether you agree or not about an association, your opinion about contract law or your constitutional rights or brokering or the legality of equitable interest, none of that matters anymore. There is no way back from this. They don't care about any of that. They are not going to let you continue traditional wholesaling without oversight. So, do you want them to make policy without our involvement and steamroll us out of existence? Or do you want to continue to wholesale with as minimal overreach as possible? Look, you need to set your ego aside and do what's for the greater good of all. And you know what? Maybe it's too late. Maybe it won't matter and it's a waste of time. Maybe we can't save the industry, but it's worth the try. Wholesaling took me from a dead end job working minimum wage to becoming a multimillionaire and living the life of my dreams. But I've made it. And if traditional wholesaling goes away, I'll be perfectly fine because I'll simply pivot and keep going. I'm thinking about the next generation. I'm thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about someone who, like me, is looking for their start in real estate. And I'm convinced if we rally together, we can make a difference, but it's going to take a collective effort. Having said all of that, you can't be naive about what's happening. Smart investors and entrepreneurs know when and how to adjust to market conditions, the economy, interest rates, or in this case, regulation. So, what alternative solutions are there to accomplish the same objective as wholesaling? That's the question you should be asking. If we really break it down, wholesaling real estate is really just flipping houses without having to fix them up. It's about getting a great deal and selling it for more money. It's the same as buying an iPhone on Facebook Marketplace for $600 and reselling it for $800. My brother Doug owns and operates a used heavy equipment company. He buys backhoes and excavators at auctions below value and then resells them online for a profit. And he does it at a high level and makes millions of dollars a year doing it. Go to nortonequip.com if you want an as-is cash offer for your equipment. I just dealt with a fence wholesaler on my farm here in Tennessee. I wanted to put in 3,000 feet of livestock fencing, so I started getting bids from local fence installers. One day I was driving in town and I saw a yard sign on the side of the road that said, "I install fences." So I called the sign. The guy met me at my farm. I showed him what I wanted. He said he'd give me a bid in a few days. Then he went to a local Hispanic fence crew he knew, and they quoted approximately $20,000 to do the job. He came back to me with a price of $32,000, $12,000 more than the Hispanic crew. This was my fifth quote, and so far all of my other quotes were over $50,000. So after vetting him, I agreed to his price of $32,000. A week later, the Hispanic crew of 10 guys showed up and installed my fences in like 3 days. I paid the fence wholesaler $32,000, and he turned around and paid the Hispanic crew $20,000 and made a $12,000 profit. I know because I speak Spanish fluently, and I asked the crew leader, Eduardo from El Salvador, how much he was getting paid for the job, and he told me. But guess what? I didn't care. The Hispanics were happy with $20,000 because they didn't have to do the work to market for a customer. The fence wholesaler was happy because he made $12,000 for putting the deal together. And I was happy because I got my fences installed for a great price. That is wholesaling, and it exists in every single industry, across every single product or service, from Amazon to Walmart. My kids even do this. I pay my 12-year-old to take the garbage all the way to the end of the driveway every week for the garbage man. The other day, I looked out the window and I saw my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old dragging the cans down the driveway. So I asked my 12-year-old, I said, "Why are your younger siblings doing your job?" He said, "I told them that I'd play with them on the trampoline if they took out the garbage for me." That's wholesaling. I gave him a high five and said, "Attaboy." Now, the best example of wholesaling I can think of that is similar to houses is used cars. CarMax is perhaps the largest used car dealer in the country. They offer the speed and convenience of an as-is cash offer on the spot for your used car. You're not going to believe this. Did you know that they buy the car at a discount for cash and then turn around and sell it for a profit? Can you believe that? Think of all those poor car owners getting scammed out of their hard-earned equity. What a freaking joke. It's the biggest lie ever. Did you know why people willingly walk into CarMax and knowingly sell their car at a discount and walk out 10 minutes later with cash in their pocket? They willingly and knowingly do it for the speed and convenience. They don't want to fix it up and put on new tires. They don't want to post it for sale online and have showings and appraisals and inspections and financing. They don't want to go through the time and hassle, even though they know they could get more money. They would rather sell at a discount for the speed and convenience. That means CarMax is nothing more than a car wholesaler. Well, the CarMax model is the future of wholesaling houses. In fact, it already actually exists. That's what Open Door and OfferPad do. The exact thing as CarMax. The difference between CarMax, OfferPad, and Open Door and the traditional wholesaler is they don't contract a property and then assign their contract. They don't market or sell their equitable interest. They actually buy the property, fund the purchase, take title, and then turn around and resell it for a profit, and no one has a single problem with it. Look, let's preserve the strategy of marketing and selling equitable interest. I'm all for it. But let's also be real. Equitable interest is a dying model. The future of wholesaling is to become a mini version of Open Door Offer Pad or CarMax, where you offer the seller an as is cash offer at a discount, then you perform on the contract and buy the dang thing. Then, once you own it with no predetermined buyer, you resell it for a profit. In real estate, this is a commonly known strategy called wholetailing, but that implies you're wholesaling to a retail buyer, which isn't necessarily the case. I've given it a more appropriate name called the takedown method because you're actually taking the deal down and buying it. With the takedown method, there's no marketing or selling equitable interest. There's no disclosure about wholesaling or getting a license. All of that nonsense goes out the door because you are actually performing on the contract and buying the property. But that means you have to become a big boy or a big girl investor. You have to get the capital to buy the property. You have to close and take title, which means you have to be willing to take on a certain level of risk. And I know that can be intimidating if you're a new investor. I get that. But that just means you need to acquire some new skills. You may need to partner with an experienced investor who knows what they're doing. You may need someone skilled to help you underwrite your deal, and you most certainly will need funding to buy deals. But make no mistake, the takedown method will eventually become the new way, or the only viable way, or maybe even just the smartest way to wholesale. In time, wholesaling real estate will be just like the car industry or just about every other industry, where we buy it at a discount and resell it for a profit. Now, the takedown method is something that I've been doing in my real estate business and teaching my students and followers for years now. I did an entire playlist series on how to do the takedown method from start to finish. I even have a free Quickstart kit to help you implement the takedown method right away. I'll put those links in the description below for you. I also realized that access to funding is the secret ingredient to the takedown method. I've been piloting a 100% funding program for takedown deals where I'll give you 100% of the money to buy the deal, including closing costs, and you don't even have to pay monthly payments. It's deferred until you sell the property later. This is a complete game changer because now you can literally do deals with no money at all, just like the traditional assignment method. Now, I've gone through several variations of this funding, but I think we finally got a version that works really well, even if it's your first deal and you have no experience, even if you have bad credit and no cash reserves. I'm going to be doing more content about how this funding works, but if you have a deal right now under contract that is at least 70% of the current as-is value and you'd like to submit for approval to get 100% funding, I'll put a link to the application in the description below. Now, here's my goal and what you can expect from me. I'm going to continue to fight to protect all forms of marketing and selling equitable interest, aka traditional wholesaling. I'm also going to continue to work hard to bring alternative solutions to the wholesale industry, such as the takedown method and 100% funding and other viable methods. Bottom line, nothing is going to stop me or my students from continuing to transact at a high level, build sustainable, profitable businesses, and operate ethically, morally, and legally in the process. Now, if that's you, I invite you to come along for the ride. I run and operate a small community where we work together, do deals together, and stay one step ahead of the game. It's called Fast Track. To learn more about how you can work closely with me and my partners and students, just go to fasttrackwithjerry.com. In the meantime, make it a priority to operate with integrity and be an example to the industry. I'll see you on the next video.